So we have a special guest tonight. Tonight with us, we're going to have Brad from Full Spectrum Survival. He's going to be coming on here very shortly, and we are going to talk about home security, the protocols that your family needs in order to become more secure. So, Brad, are you there?
I sure am, Patrick. Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody who's joined us in the chat room so far.
Well, thank you for coming on board and being a guest on my live stream, which is kind of a coincidence.
Yeah, always glad to. You know, we have such a great community. A lot of our friends pass over, and they kind of move to wherever we're going to be having a live show because the community follows and everyone, shares a lot of great information. We've got some people in the chat who have talked about their own preparedness, what they did while you were telling us what you did. Some people dehydrated, other people took a self-defense course. So a lot going on.
Yeah, you can hear from Brad first. Every time he signs off his channel, he usually tells folks, just do one thing per week to be prepared.
That's right.
One new thing. And so, what'd you do this week?
This week, we got some preparedness plans in order for our animals. We saw that it was such a huge issue here locally. We have a animal shelter that is closing down, and they're going to see the euthanization of, I'd like to say at minimal dozens, but they're looking at into around 200 pets. And while that's happening all the time and we're all sort of desensitized to that, it got me thinking about some things that we had talked with Megan, your wife, who works in animal control, and about how we can each prepare better for our creatures. And so last week we talked a little bit about that in the chat. Some people who were saying that they had gotten together their preps for their pets, and to keep those separate. We're kind of following along that same line, except including some preparedness items just for the pet. So instead of treating their first aid as just a part of our first aid kit, having some items just for them. And that allows us to also take inventory of the things that we don't have access to on the medical level, because a lot of times, especially out in the country, you can get similar items from the veterinarian side.
Nice. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we're going with rabbits, is so if anything does happen, we'll have a good food source for the dogs.
That's right.
And we were, prepared to do this for our previous dog that just passed away last week, but we're going to continue on with that torch. And some people may say it's too soon for us to get a new dog, but the mindset of a homesteader or a preparedness person, prepper, is to always have one available. Two is one is none, and so on and so forth. To think of it in a sense of a family dog, it may be kind of, I don't say vulgar or what's the word, to where you're lacking of emotion towards it.
Sure,
it's the fact that your family needs a protector.
That's right.
Your family should have a dog if it's able, because it's one of the biggest security factors you can have in any situation, not just an SHTF situation.
And it's taken on the conversation topic of dogs. We recently, and no one, you saw a video of the pit bull inside in the short film. But we made a conscious decision to go with a pit bull and people have different feelings, of course, about the breed. But one thing, we've only really had German Shepherds for the last 10 to 15 years. Yeah. And so German Shepherds have a very similar disposition. I wouldn't say their personality, but they have a similar disposition. The ones that we've had have always been very hard dogs, so they don't mind discipline. And they need a lot more discipline. If you have a very soft dog, you can yell at it. It's going to put its tail between its legs, go hide in the corner. And really, it affects that dog. If you have a hard dog, it doesn't care if you yell at it, smack it on the butt, and that's what we're looking for our homestead, is that hard dog.
Yeah.
So while we don't specifically, seek out, I guess, aggression in a creature, the aggressive breed dogs have a predisposition to that nature, and it's because they're harder that they don't mind, and that's what I want. So we chose a pit bull, one because the father of this pit bull, he's about 100 pounds and all muscle, and they can't stop him from jumping the 5-foot fence that they keep him in, so they have to keep him locked up.
Right.
And I heard that and I said, okay, that's what I want.
A new protector.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's cool.
So
Uh,
I'm glad you did pick up the torch and got a new pup in the house.
yeah, it's kind of got to happen. I'm just saying, a dog takes a minimum of 3 months to train.
Hmm.
So, folks, before we get into this, I want to put out a disclaimer. These are just suggestions to make your family a more secure unit when it comes to safety and security for your household. Please take use of these examples we're about to give you, but do not copy them. I want you to change them up in your own way in which your family can remember and build upon. So, with that disclaimer, I want to talk about protocol. What is protocol? When family members communicate with each other, there needs to be a common set of rules and instruction that each family member follows. A specific set of communication rules in between the family members of that household. And that is what protocol is. You see HTTP on the front of your web address there. You see IP address. You see everything like that. Those P's are called protocols, and there's a huge number of rules computers have to follow, and that's called protocol as well. So like the computers, families need to be the same way when it comes to the security of their home. Now, this was supposed to start with just the door security, but without this protocol, these kind of don't make sense, and they won't work unless your family unit has a set of rules to follow.
And that's
So,
right, and that's really the definition, like you said, of protocol is that it's going to you're going to get the same reaction, the same thing over and over again. Everybody knows exactly what to follow, and so that there's no confusion, because it's within that confusion that your plan of action will fall apart. Well, guys, let me go ahead and break into a little bit of statistics. So, home invasions. This isn't just something that we need to think about for a disaster setting. It's something that is happening right now. And I want to read you a little bit of information from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, and the Bureau of Justice Statistics. This is from the National Crime Victimization Survey, and it covered a period between 2003 to 2007. And dare I say that things haven't gotten better since then. So at the time that this data set was taken, an estimated 3.7 million household burglaries occurred each and every year on average from 2003 to 2007. In 28% of these burglaries, a household member was present. So 28%, a household member was present.
that's scary.
That is scary. In 7% of all the burglaries, a household member experienced a form of violent victimization. So an estimated 3.7 million burglaries, a household member was present in roughly 1 million of those. Simple assault was 15%, which was the most common form of violence when a resident was home. And so simple assault means, the burglar comes in looking for some quick cash, sees grandma, walking in to see what the broken glass noise was. They push grandma down and run away. That would be considered a simple assault. Or worse and more likely, they push grandma down, tell her, "Where's your purse?" Take that and run away. Offenders were known to their victims, and this is important. The offender, the one doing the breaking and entering, was known to the victim in 65% of all violent burglaries.
Wow, what does that tell you about your friends and family, and who you choose to make a friend? And I think it's difficult for me to make friends because I don't trust people.
Yeah, and there is a fine line, Patrick, and everyone listening, between people will say, "Oh, well, I just let everybody know where my key is. If you don't do that, that's being paranoid." No, absolutely not.
It's not.
That's self-preservation. There's a difference between paranoia and self-preservation. Paranoia would be saying that I'm not going to come here and talk with you guys because, aliens are going to get my DNA out of my voice print. And that would be paranoia. Self-preservation would be to say, I'm not going to explain to you what methods of protection I'm going to use at my home.
And people shouldn't pry for that information. You know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying? I think a good friend will accept information as you give it to them, not pry for that information. And they should be honored to get that information because you're entrusting them with knowledge that other people aren't aware of.
That's right. Okay, so on average, household members became victims of violent crimes in 266,000 burglaries annually. Offenders known, like I said, households composed of single females with children had the highest rate of burglaries with somebody present. So that takes an image, a glimpse of the predatory nature of a burglar. They look and see, okay, this is just a woman here. She's got a child there, so she's not going to fight. Boom, that's prey. Households comprised of married couples without children experienced the lowest rates of both types of burglary when no one was home. And single heads of households, males and female, living with children experienced the highest rate of burglary when no member was present.
Huh.
Damaging or removing a door was the most common type of entry. So that goes right into one of our future talks there. In forcible and attempted forcible entry burglaries, removing a damaged window screen before or during forcible entry was equally likely to occur whether the residence was occupied or unoccupied. So, you're looking at this here. What is going to happen? They're either going to gain entry by you letting them in, they're going to take the door, or they're going to take the window. And each one of those things, we can each help make sure that we're not a part of that statistic.
And I will say, in the beginning of this, people need to realize if people want to get into your residence, they will. There's, a door, a window, just a wall, a common wall these days are pretty thin. And so if they really want to get in, they will. Those things are just it's a barrier, visual barrier.
That's
it's a
right.
block.
And especially, here in the US or in the West, we have demonized security.
Oh yeah.
And so if somebody has bars on their windows, there's two stereotypical things that people will say about them. One is they live in a really high crime rate area, or two, they're paranoid.
Yes. And it's funny because I lived in Naples. I met my wife in Naples, Italy, and I had a nice little pad there at that point. And the front door of the house was vaulted. It was a vaulted door. It had a key about this long and a multifaceted, double-sided key. And you had to turn it 3 times just to open the door. And when you opened it, this thing was heavy steel, and it was just like a bank vault. What somebody here would hold their guns in was the same door of a normal residence over there. And every single window and door had metal shutters. And these were thick metal shutters that closed and locked. And have you ever been victim of a burglarization at your residence or home?
I have not. I've had, when I was growing up, there was somebody that tried to gain entry. Luckily, I grew up in a household with a concealed weapon owner, and my father, forget what he did exactly. He didn't open the door, but we had a small window. I think it was about a handheld sized window, nothing anyone could get through. And it was far up on top of the door. So they didn't have any chance of reaching in to open the door through the broken window. So I remember him saying that he put pointed the firearm at the person through the window, stepped to the side, explained to them what was going to happen if they continued trying to gain entry, and they left. So that was the only attempted at up to my knowing.
I think that's one of the liberties we do have that other people in other countries don't have. But we were victim of a robbery while we were in-house. The last year we were in Naples, Italy. We were actually staying inside my in-laws, current in-laws, home. We were upstairs, and while we were upstairs, and we had 3 dogs at the time upstairs with us, it was the craziest thing. A Belgian Malinois, Sam, he was our lab mix,
Okay.
and a collie, a border collie, and all 3 of these dogs were in the house, and they were all upstairs sleeping with us, of all things, and they had come through the bathroom window downstairs, and they literally wiped the place clean without us even noticing that they were there.
Wow.
Even the dogs.
Yeah, this wasn't their first time.
It wasn't their first time. No, I was pretty impressed with it and pretty grossed out by it because, even with the dogs there, they still got away with it, which means these people were pretty darn stealth.
Right.
But it's the type of area, Naples is the type of area that they could rob the wrong house. So I'll give you an example. We told the landlord that, hey, we're going to be moving out here soon. So he probably tipped off somebody else, hey, they're leaving here soon. Now's your chance. they're going to be moving soon. So it's all
Right.
going to be boxed up, ready to go. And so let's say they went to the wrong house and they made a mistake. And I went back to my landlord and said, hey, well, my stuff is missing. And they go, well, wrong house. You would wake up the next day and all your stuff would be put back in the house.
Right.
So that's just the way it works over there because of the mafia and all that stuff, which does exist in Naples, Italy. But yeah, go ahead with your stats.
Okay. So
went off to the side there.
yeah, that's okay. Very important topic. Okay, so the rate of property crime as a whole decreased from 13.9 victimizations per 1,000 households. This was at one period, and then it increased again. When do burglaries occur? Most of them during the night, because there's a cover of darkness. Burglars are predators. The lowest amount of burglaries happen in the month of February for one reason or another. Maybe they're out buying their significant others too many roses and chocolates. Snow and cold are also significant deterrents. Now, what these things tell us is that the threat of being found out daytime and snow and cold being deterrents tells us that they are looking for opportunity. And just like creatures will take the path of least resistance, they're going to take the path of entry to with least resistance, or the most stuff with least resistance. So the more that we can each do to put up resistance to burglars or home invaders is going to help us out just that much more. How do they break in? Most are attracted to homes that do not have a visible home security system because there's that threat of being caught. Homes without a security system, according to one statistic, are 300% more burglarized. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating get one, but at least get the sticker. It's not going to hurt anybody. And, put it on your front yard and put it on your door. 95% of all home invasions required some sort of forceful entry, be that breaking a window, picking a lock, or kicking open a door. And those are, I have, Patrick, I have tons and tons of actual statistics, but I don't think we have to get into each one of them with the risk of just boring people. We understand that these things can happen to anyone.
Right. And so the threat is very real. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's obviously probably going to happen in your lifetime, and it's probably going to happen by somebody you know, which I don't doubt that. It happens all the time. So there's some great stats. So many families do not have a protocol and should consider implementing protocol to keep the family secure, not only while at home, but while they're outside the house. Your family and friends should enforce a protocol for your front door. So let me ask you a question, Brad. What's the first thing a burglar or intruder is going to do when they step in front of your door?
Well, looking at the statistics we just read, with the majority of all home invasions being people known to you, they're going to come and knock on the door.
They're going to case the joint. Knock, knock. Let's see who's here.
Yep. At one point, that might not be the home invasion point. At one point, they're going to see who's in there and they're going to knock on the door.
Right. Exactly. And so the advantages that people make when they knock on the door, when it's answered right away, is one, see who answers the door. A female, a child,
right.
Anybody. It could be a midget or somebody else or something like that. And they'll see that as a threat or an advantage. So normally they'll do the three knock, or they'll do the friendly shave and a haircut knock to make it sound more friendly. Mm-hmm. And then it won't sound like it's a threat.
Right.
So next question for the everyday common person, when they hear a knock at the door, how are they going to be able to tell if it's a stranger, a friend, or a family member knocking at the door?
Well, if you're security minded and you don't have a door full of windows, and of course, assuming the person doesn't have a security system, they can't tell the difference.
Right. You can't. You won't know if it's a stranger, a friend, or a family member. Could be some guy holding a box. You think it's a UPS man. He's really holding a box that's got a machete in it or something like that. Mm-hmm. You never know who's going to be at that front door. So part of this protocol is to bring family into the situation, awareness into the situation, into how to properly answer the door, whether it be the front door or the back door. So I want everybody to grab a pen and paper. I'll give you a few seconds and follow along with these steps that we're going to give you tonight. And we're going to go over and discuss them. I want you to go over them and discuss them with your family after we're done here. And I think after you see what we talk about, you're going to have a realization that this needs to happen as soon as possible, because with the changing times coming up and the way it is now, because it's changing now, enforcing this in your family and going beyond what we're talking about tonight will make you and your family members safer people.
And, Bill Confidential says a doorbell camera and security system, security cameras are a great option. I think everybody should have a security system. I think it should also alert them when the power is cut or when the system's cut as a sort of canary system.
Right.
But what doorbell cameras and Nest and all of those have shown us now is that we can go look and see how truly, I guess, how truly horrific the trend of home invasions has become, where it is really a scary time and one that you don't want to make yourself susceptible to.
Yeah, there's been a huge trend over the past few years on packages getting stolen from houses. Actually, it's been a huge trend for a long time, but recently, because of the invention of the doorbell camera and hidden cameras, they've really brought that out to light. And there's just one guy, he does this package that has 4 cameras in it, and on top of it has the finest grade glitter that you can find. So when they open it, a fan kicks on it, it just blows glitter everywhere. It's hilarious.
That's right.
And it's got a GPS tracker on it so they can tell where they're at. But we'll talk about technology and the advantages of that, and when we do our door segment, and I hope to make some videos before that and be able to get you some examples on what we can do for our doors.
Awesome.
So hopefully you guys have your pen and papers by now. We're going to talk about our number one thing, the doorbell. And not just the doorbell, we're talking about 2 doorbells. If you don't have doorbells, go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's, go any place and get a doorbell. You can get a wireless doorbell or you can get a doorbell installed. Whatever you do when you get your doorbell, make sure it has a little light on it so people can see it at nighttime or during the day. Because a light is going to avert a person's eyes to go, okay, this is where I need to touch. It's going to keep them from knocking on the door. They're going to think, doorbell, push, doorbell, push. Even if you put a sign there that says use the doorbell, that's even better. It's going to direct them to do that. And so the reason why I say 2 doorbells, you're going to want to put one on the front of your door and one on the back door. And they're going to have 2 different chimes. So once that doorbell is pressed, you'll know whether someone's at the front door or whether somebody's at the back door. And what this is going to set is a premises for a baseline. For anybody that you know is going to knock on the door. So your friends, your family, anybody that you know are going to know the protocols on coming to your house, and they're going to end up knocking on the door. Anybody who's a stranger is going to end up pushing that button for the doorbell. So it's going to alert your family there's a stranger. So the doorbell means stranger danger. One big rule I have in my house, I've always had when I was a kid, and my brothers and sisters enforce this rule. Anytime the doorbell rings, which means stranger danger, no minor is allowed to answer the door. No child is allowed to answer the door. That is the last thing you want to happen to your child or young person in the household, is for them to be abducted, taken from a door, because an open door, even with a chain in it, is very easily accessible. Sure. I can give a quick jerk and pop a chain and pull that kid out of the way, take off in a vehicle, and by the time you even get to the door, we'll be gone.
That's right.
That's not a movie thing. It happens every single day. And so, be aware of that. You have any ads on that?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And, we live in this society of false delusions of safety and security, and this is purposeful. If you look at the political system, anytime that they're coming through, new mayors are going for office, new governors and everything, one of their major priorities is to put a lockdown on the communication of violent activity or drug activity happening in that region. They want everybody to look and feel, it's all unicorns and rainbows. Everything's great. This is the place you want to be, the place you want to live. Why do they do that? Because just like you going to McDonald's to buy a hamburger, you are a a patron of theirs. We pay our taxes to them. They want more and more people to be happy to live there and keep paying their taxes. And so they give this false semblance of safety and security, and it goes all the way down the line. We were watching a show with the kids, and one of these, and it was a kid show. It was directed, at a very young age group, and the show had the children, and this was just today. The doorbell rang. Oh, go to send the kid to the door. Oh, look, it's grandma and grandpa. And it's just that type of thought process that I think we all have to say, okay, that's just not the smart thing to do, and make yourself aware of the statistics. Even when I was growing up, I grew up in a nice area of Pinellas County in Florida, which is right by Tampa. Very low reported crime rate. But then I asked a police officer how much violent crime took place in that area. And he said, let me just tell you, we're on violent crime calls every single day, all day long. And so that just shows you it's happening.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. And there may have been a point in a time where you can leave your front door open, or you can answer the door without issues. But that was a point in time when people had values. And people, took their name as their own, and
and you knew everybody in town. And
exactly.
If somebody went the unwise path of breaking into or burglarizing somebody in town's house and they got caught, every single person in town was going to act upon that person in a very not sustainable way.
Absolutely. So let's move on to so that is the first part of it, and the thing is, the doorbell is now going to become a stranger danger issue. So the second part is stop using the front door. Now, this is what I want you to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you think I'm wrong in saying this, but if every family member that lives inside the house, every resident inside the house, should be using the back door or an alternative exit and entry point. They shouldn't be going in or out of the front door. And what that's going to do is, because 90% of the people that are going to come to your front door are going to be strangers, it's going to eliminate that possibility that it's a family member. But we'll also get into how we're going to deviate from that to make sure we know if it's a family member or a stranger, because they're going to end up using that button. So if you have immediate family members, you should be using an alternative route, usually your back door, or if you have a garage door or something like that you go through that area. It gives you a better advantage if you walk around your house beforehand, because you don't know what's back there. You're walking up to a house, nobody's been occupied in the house for a while. You go around the house. I tell you, my house in Laurinburg got robbed. It got robbed with all its piping and everything like that.
Okay.
And they were caught. They were caught because the person walked around the back side of the house and saw there was a car there and immediately called the cops. And they got caught and arrested for that. And so walking around the house, you can see if there's anybody behind the house. And that gives you an opportunity to escape, to leave, if you do see something that's not aware. Also, you know what your outside of the house looks like. If anything looks off, you didn't put it there before, or you see a broken window or a door that's open, that gives you an opportunity to observe your house before entering your house.
That's right.
So that's stop using the front door. The use of the front door should be restricted to only uncommon family members, friends, repairmen, and strangers. Those are the only 4 types of people that should be going through your front door. What do you think about that rule?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Of course, I think some people will have, their own personal inability to do that, whether their back door is, in a cage, or
handicapped people with
that's
a
right.
ramp, stuff like that. I'm not saying you try to climb your stairs or anything like that.
Yeah, fire exit only for the apartment dwellers.
Exactly. Use common sense with this. If you are incapable of using your other exits, using your other entrances, by all means, this is just a protocol and a suggestion. We're not saying you have to do this. Again, the disclaimer in the front, in the beginning, says, "Hey, we're giving you suggestions."
That's right.
So
and the front door, what Patrick is saying, becomes your funneled entrance point. It's where everything you treat it just like you would, people that you don't want on your property. You want to funnel them to a certain position. That way, it's easier to deal with them.
Yeah. And so to give you an example of this, Like he said, it's a funnel. When you go to a school, if any of you have children, you go to school, they go through in and out of one set of doors.
Right.
When you go to the White House, do they go through the front door?
No.
Does the president go through the front door?
That's never going to
No,
happen.
he goes through the side door because that's more secure. It's safer because
Right.
the front faces the open mall area, and a sniper could be waiting or whatnot. So they go through a side door.
Mhm.
They practice this every day. They don't want you to practice it, but you should practice that. So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to sound completely opposite of number 2 because of this. Start using the front door. Everyone else to the front door. This is to say that they are also banned from using the other entry and exits to the house. You have friends and you have family members that don't visit very often, or they do come to the house. Friends and family members that aren't residents of the house have to use the front door. So the next time your friend comes into the house, say, hey, look, I'm bumping up my security protocols. From here on out, I want you to respect my wishes, and I want you to use only the front door.
That's right. Or even if you don't want to tell them that, you say, hey, the front door has a jam problem. Could you just use the back one? I only open it when I have to, and just make it a part of your normal everyday life.
Right. And so when you do that, people aren't going to be going to the back part of the house and where your normal family members, residents would be staying or going in and out of. So that's the start using the front door. So number 3 is called the knock. And we were talking about the tap system earlier, talking about a special way a family can get together and come up with their own way of protecting themselves. So I want you guys to create a special knock that only the household members and very, very close family know. They don't even have to have the same knock. So if a family member comes to the back door before he even opens the door, he or she is going to knock the family knock, and walk through the door. The people that audibly hear that knock know, 1, it's probably a friendly person because they didn't use the doorbell.
Right.
2, it's that family knocks. They know it's somebody coming in, and they'll obviously have a key to the door, or they'll be entering in. So that's what the knock is used for. It's a password for your family to use in a situation. So let's say there's a stress indicator. Mom and dad use, let's say I'm a kid in the situation. Mom and dad both use the back door because that's what we do. We don't use the front door because that's meant for strangers, friends, and relatives not living in the house. My father walks up to the front door and does an odd knock. And that's not the family knock. And so he's standing at the front door. He normally comes through the back. He just gave you 2 warnings. Huge warnings that something's not right.
Right. Passive warning.
Exactly. And the only people who are going to know that are the people who are going to know these knocks inside the house. And so it's a good way to work that out. So you have a knock for your family. Have a knock for your friends that the family knows. There's a secondary friendly knock for your friends. So you're going to tell your friends when they approach the house to come to the front door, because that's the door only door they go in and out of. And as they approach the house, they're going to honk their horn on their car to indicate, hey, somebody's here.
Right.
And so once they get to the door, they're going to knock on the door. They're going to avoid the button, and they're going to avoid the doorbell because that's the stranger danger indicator. And then they're going to do their friendly knock. So you're going to hear that's from the front door, and that's a friendly knock. So I know there's a friend at the front door, and there's no issues. I can go to the door. You could even send your children to the door because it's safe for them to go to the door and open the door. So your kids aren't banned from the front door or from answering the door. They are banned from answering to strangers. So again, another warning or stress indicator for your friends. They could do the same thing. If your friend comes up to the door, ding dong, and you see it's somebody that knows that code, it's a stress indicator. Something's wrong. Something's not right. Well, that was the knock plus part.
And remember, of our statistic, the majority, over 60% of all home invasions, will be people known to you. That doesn't necessarily mean it's your friend from high school. That means that they might have came up last week and discussed selling something, letting everybody know that they were installing roofs or repairing roofs in that neighborhood. All of these common everyday things that happen in a city, they're going to come back up to that front door again the next time.
Yep. And that's kind of a disadvantage because the majority of those people are probably close family.
Mm-hmm.
But are they close enough to where you give them that secret knock?
Right.
That was the knock plus family and friends. Explain to your friends and family outside the household that you take home security very seriously and they need to follow those steps. So they use the front door. They must never use the doorbell. Doorbell indicates stranger danger. They must knock the friend knock, and then the stress indicator in case they are in trouble or there's something wrong with that situation.
Right.
So the next part is called the approach. And hopefully everybody's doing well. I haven't been watching the...
I'm keeping an eye on the chat. Everyone's doing good, exchanging some good tips and topics between themselves.
Right. And I'm not trying to use actual practice things. The knocks we use are not what we use in our own families or anything like that. But moving on to the approach part. So the approach. When you have a ding-dong at the door, a stranger at the door, never answer the door right away. Observe the person's actions.
Mm-hmm.
So as you are approaching the door, you hear a ding-dong at the door. They're going to expect a small delay, the person at the door, because they don't know where you're at in the house. But that gives an indicator that, hey, somebody's at the front door or the back door. So
can I break in with something real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's something that has been on my mind because I've been doing some research leading up to this show. And it's something that was always in my SOP. So I always
Standard
knew
operating procedures for those who don't know what an SOP is.
That's right. So I always knew that we are given figures of authority or positions of authority that you are supposed to trust, give your legitimate trust to no matter what, that they are who they say they are. And so the real slick criminals will come up forcefully, quick, tell you that they're the police, and you're going to let them inside of your house. Because just saying that they're the police or they're detective with this and that, they're following up on some home invasions in the area, do they have a moment to talk? You're going to let them into the house, or the majority are going to let them into the house. And the one thing I want to break in that and say is there is nothing wrong with if you get a knock on the door with someone claiming to be a police officer, even if it's two cops showing up, there is nothing wrong with calling 911 and saying, I have two people at my front door. They say they're cops, and I don't think they are.
And verifying that.
That's right. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that, because this will happen more and more as intelligent people become predators. They're going to use intelligent tactics to get you to open the door.
You can go online now. You can see on YouTube, there's videos out there of fake cops pulling over undercover cops.
Mm-hmm.
It's hilarious, but at the same time, it's very scary. That's very, very good information. So never
you're going over the approach.
Yeah, the approach. Never answer the door right away. Observe the person's actions. If you have windows on the door, we'll talk about this during the door section. If you have any windows that are clear, you're going to end up glazing those windows to where they cannot see into your house. You don't want the person to be able to look inside. You don't want to be able to see that person. We're going to use technology for that, but that's down the road. So observe the person's actions. A complete stranger should not linger, nor should they be looking through your windows. Right. Or especially going around the backyard. So if you see them leave and you see somebody approaching out the back door, that's an issue. That's a huge issue. On top of that, you hear the doorbell ring at the back door. That's not somebody you know.
That's right.
At all. You approach that situation with, I would say, firearm in hand, or at least very, very much cautioned approach. With that, if the back doorbell rings, I want you to make sure kids know if the back doorbell rings, they need to go into a hiding spot.
Mm-hmm.
They need to notify you. Anytime the doorbell rings for a minor, their job is to come and notify an adult. Hey, the doorbell's ringing. It's a stranger. And if the back doorbell rings, they notify you, then they go hide under the bed or their safe spot to where they need to be in case something does happen.
Smart.
Or on standby to call 911 if something does happen.
That's right.
So the numbers are never a good sign. If there are multiple people at your doorstep, uninvited multiple people at your doorstep is a very rare occasion.
That's right.
Unless they're Jehovah's Witness or something like that, it's a very small percentage of number of people at your doorstep. It's a very small percentage.
And guys, the slick criminals are going to use psychological manipulation. They know if they put a woman there, a female up front, or even just in the group, you automatically
Absolutely.
put your blocks down. Just as humans, we do. So you got to remember to keep them up.
I got a great story for you as soon as I get through this part here about somebody who came to my house just this last year. So next up is you're going to check your peephole. Your door is going to have a peephole in it with a notepad sticking to the door. Look through the peephole, take a look at the person, but also look for a car, a vehicle. You know, if you're going to open the door for this person, you're going to have that opportunity to observe the person, see exactly what he or she looks like. And so what you're not going to have time to do when you're talking to that person is observe around that person. So you're going to look for a vehicle, look for a make, a model, and color of the vehicle. You're just going to write it down on that pad next to your peephole. And so if anything does happen, you have a description of the vehicle they got away in. And you'll have the description of the person because you spoke to them or they attacked or did something to provoke. But also take a look for a vehicle. If there's no vehicle and this person has walked to your door, there may be an issue. If you live in a city or something like that, it's not uncommon for people to walk. But it's good 200 yards from the road to where my front door is in the country where I live. If anybody's walking up to my house 200 yards from the road, they're either in trouble and need help immediately, so might as well call the cops anyway, right? Or they're looking for trouble, or they're looking for a nice hideaway from the road to either rob, steal from, or whatnot. So the peephole is the next part. No car, no business. Straight up. Anyone approaching your home and knocking on the door on foot is no-go. All business is conducted behind the closed door until credentials can be verified. And so that's the next step is generic credentials. They may produce a card. And if they produce a card with no name on it, that is a huge indicator that person is a crook. I don't care if he's an intern from a company that uses a basic card to work, whatnot, they're a crook.
Right.
Straight up.
They have
Anyone
something to
showing
hide.
you exactly anyone showing you a card or identification that does not contain the name of that person or a picture. A picture is a big thing too. Should be considered a threat. So this is where I go in the story. I had 200 yards away from the road. This red car pulls into the drive. A woman and a male get out of the vehicle and they approach. And I say, hey, how can I help you guys? My wife was outside with us. We were working in the yard at the time. And he's like, hey, my name is Bob or Bill or whatever, the generic name.
Right.
And we work for Kirby Vacuum Cleaners, and we would like to take this moment to give you a demonstration on our vacuums. I said, it's interesting because, you don't normally get a Kirby Vacuum Cleaner salesperson. Right. So the girl was his intern. And the goal of these people were to get into the house. Right. And I said, no. I instantly said, no, I'm sorry. I can't help you out there. The whole house is hardwood. And so we have no carpets, so we have no needs for a vacuum cleaner. He immediately returned back, said, hey, that's good because we have a new floor model that cleans hardwood floors. We'd like to show you whatnot. I said, well, pull it out. Let me see it. Well, let's go inside first and talk about it.
Right.
Boom, indicator. Nope.
Right.
Can I have some identification, something like that? He pulls out this card. I wish I had it in my old wallet. I don't have it anymore. The generic Kirby vacuum cleaner card with no name on it whatsoever. And I said, I hate to stop the conversation right here, but I need you both to get back in your car and leave my property. And they're like, why? Did we say something wrong or anything like that? I said, even if you are legit, you handed me invalid identification.
Right.
I said, I don't know who you are or what you're doing. I said, but you need to leave right now. I said, if I have to repeat myself again, I will be returning with my 9mm with my gun,
Right.
and it won't be pleasant. And he's like, hey, no problem, man. We'll go ahead and leave, whatnot. And because of the place I live outside of Fort Bragg. Almost every person that has land here or is has residence here is a retired special operation forces, retired military of some sort or whatnot, especially around here. And I said, let me give you a word of advice, young man. I said, if the driveway is longer than 100 yards, even 50 yards, I said, don't go down it.
Right.
I said, I did you a favor today. You could go down the next driveway and you'll have bullets flying at you.
Right.
And so that happened, and I said, as you show up with credentials, maybe we can talk about it. You show up with an actual item to show me what's going on, because they didn't have a floor model
That's
to
right.
show me.
Yeah. You might have treated it differently if it had been legitimate.
Exactly. I said, just give me a call, and I said, here's my phone number, and I never got a phone call back.
Mm-hmm.
So he got the hint. But he also got the hint that, hey, maybe this is not such a great area. Not only did I protect myself, but I protected those around me just by giving them that information.
That's right.
And I would not have hesitated to go get my gun if that were the case. So no generic credentials. So before the last part, we're going to talk about how to engage a person that is a threat to your family or your well-being. So do you have anything to add to what we just talked about?
No, not yet. No, that's those are all real smart things that people should adopt for themselves. And like you said, these aren't, ideas or priorities written in stone. These are things that should spark that idea in your own mind, and you say, okay, well, what's going to work for me?
Right. Again, we're suggesting these things, and we want you to use your imagination and expand upon them, because the variations are limitless. And you can make your own code, do anything you want, but just do something. Be proactive on the security of your family. And in these days and times, nobody wants their child abducted. Nobody wants to be broken into. Nobody wants any of that stuff. So the last part of the show, we're going to talk about a few things that states have provided in the United States to their residents to protect themselves and the laws behind that. And we're going to go over what states do what. And these are stand your ground laws in practice, stand your ground laws within one own vehicle. So stand your ground in your own vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
The castle doctrine, and with the castle doctrine, with that goes the duty to retreat in public. Each state that has the castle doctrine, they also have a duty to retreat in public.
And remember, I guess one of the biggest things that I want to point out as we get into these individual options for how to handle a situation is it all comes down to what you can prove.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't be gung-ho about anything. Stand firm in your respect for your own ability to defend your life.
Anybody ever ask you to explain a situation where you have to hurt somebody, kill somebody, defend yourself, the first thing that should come out of your mouth is, I want to speak to a lawyer.
That's right. Nothing else.
Nothing else.
That's right.
That's it.
Let me tell you guys, for anybody listening, it is the detectives and it is the police officer's job to put somebody in jail that day. It's their job to put somebody behind bars. That is their job. They're not doing it because they don't like you, but they are going to use the tools at their disposal to choose whoever they think is most likely to hold that position of jail. And so they're going to use those tools to convince you to make an admission of guilt or to do all of these things. And if you say, I need to talk to my attorney, they're going to say, well, that sounds like you're guilty right there. Only criminals say that. And they're going to get you to want to talk. Don't do it. Don't talk. I need to talk to my attorney. I won't speak before that. And just shut up. It's okay to be rude.
That's it. And be as vulgar as you want. I mean, just like, nope, I ain't doing it.
Right.
And the last part of that is the duty to retreat. There are states out there that require you to not defend yourself.
Hmm.
So you got your show notes in front of you?
I do.
Okay, I would like to go over the first one, and if you want to go over the next one, we
Absolutely.
can switch off until we finish the this portion of it and the ending of it. So the first part is stand your ground law. It's also called a line in the sand, or no duty to retreat law. Establishes a right by which a person may defend oneself or others against threats or perceived threats, even to the point of applying lethal force, regardless of whether safely retreating from the situation might have been possible. Such a law typically states that an individual has no duty to retreat from any place where they have a lawful right to be. That person is standing their ground. They don't have to retreat because they have every individual right to be there.
That's right. And that
Um,
could be, the department store, the grocery store, the
right.
movie theater, your house, anywhere.
So, and that they must use any level of force if they reasonably believe that the threat rises to the level of being an imminent or immediate threat of serious bodily harm and or death. These states that allow this stand your ground law, that is law for their states: Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, West Virginia, and Wyoming. And so this is the law that's practiced throughout most of the United States, but not all of the United States.
Right. I'll go ahead and hit the next two. Uh, we've got the stand your ground in practice. These states practice the stand your ground law that Patrick just spoke of, but it is not 100% enforced. And you're going to find that they are trying to make changes in numerous states, including the state of Florida, which has long been a castle doctrine and a stand your ground state. They're trying to make changes so that this can no longer happen. And it's part of a slow kill of your individual rights to protect yourself. But back to the stand your ground in practice. These states practice the stand your ground law, but it is not 100% enforced, meaning you would have to prove you fall under the stand your ground law. And I think that this is going to pretty much fall under most lethal encounters now. You're going to have to, once you pull that trigger, once that body goes down, you are guilty. And you're going to have to prove that you're innocent. But these specifically make you prove that you're innocent under this specific law. This is California, Colorado, Illinois, New Mexico, Oregon, Virginia, and Washington. On a side note, there's a stand your ground from within a vehicle. There's a lot of gray area from my understanding of the vehicle laws, and a lot of them will have case law that isn't exactly stand your ground, but you'll be able to take it as case law if you ever find yourself in a position similarly. These states that only apply to the stand your ground within your vehicle are North Dakota, Ohio, and Wisconsin.
That's interesting to me because, I mean, that is their law. Stand your ground within your vehicle. And that's the only place you could defend yourself without the consequences.
Right.
That's crazy to me. So the next doctrine is called the Castle Doctrine. And again, as we're talking about these individual things, these are individual to those states. So we move on to the next section and name states. That's that group it belongs to. It doesn't mean you have your right to stand your ground in some other places. It's just that one block.
That's right.
So next section we're going to talk about is called the Castle Doctrine. A castle doctrine, also known, and I'm going to switch the camera here, also known as castle law or defense of habitation law, is a legal doctrine that designates a person's abode or any legally occupied place, for example, a vehicle or home, as a place in which that person has protections and immunities permitting one in certain circumstances to use force up and including deadly force to defend oneself against an intruder, free from legal prosecution for the consequences of the force used.
Mm-hmm.
And so what this means is if someone comes up to my house, I got a sign on the front saying no trespassing. Someone comes up to my house, threatens me to where I feel threatened in my life, and I shoot that person dead. It's automatically, I'm not getting arrested. I'm not going to town. Probably would anyway, under my own willingness to be questioned and to bring it in. But they won't force you. They won't rush you on the spot because you use the castle doctrine. So with the castle doctrine, duty to retreat in public. Sorry, I'm gonna grab a quick drink here real quick.
No problem. Let me see where you were at. With
Um,
the castle doctrine, duty to retreat in public. These states support the castle doctrine at home, but you have a duty to retreat in any public situation. This is Arkansas, Connecticut, Delaware, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nebraska, New York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. One thing that I kind of wanted to throw in there is that you should, as a human being, have the right to protect yourself no matter where you go.
right.
It's up to you to make that call, and it's up to you to make that decision. One fight that is ongoing in the state of Florida and also in some other regions is where individual organizations who have a political push, a political call, basically their controllers are politicizing guns, and they want it's usually the powerful individuals. They don't want the minions, the yous and me's of the worlds, to have access to firearms because that scares them. Only police should have firearms. And so these people are in a position of power, and they'll say, okay, well, Target no longer accepts people with firearms, or Macy's is huge. Macy's has a sign on all their doors to all their stores, no firearms. The legislation says that if they are inviting you into their store, you read an ad, you want to go in there and make a purchase, it's open to the general public, that they cannot stop you from protecting yourself using a legally owned firearm inside of their store. So just take those things into note. And if you wanted to be, err on the side of caution, it won't hurt you to not shop at Macy's or whatever type of establishment is doing this type of thing. But, know that no matter where you go as a human, you have a right to protect yourself.
Yeah. So the last portion of this is duty to retreat. These states require you to retreat regardless of the situation. In law, the duty to retreat or requirement to a safe retreat, a legal requirement in some jurisdictions that threaten persons cannot harm another in self-defense. You have, yeah, exactly. Especially with lethal force. It's enforced. No lethal force is allowed. When it is possible to instead retreat to a place of safety. This includes Vermont and Washington, D.C., even though D.C. is not a state. So if you get robbed and this person's holding a knife, apparently it's not lethal enough, you cannot defend yourself.
Right.
If he's not threatening to stab you, I might not be in danger, so I can't defend myself. And if you do, there's a possibility you can get put in the slammer because you hurt that individual.
That's right. And not just for the night, pinned as guilty for murder.
Exactly. Automatically guilty, slammer. And hopefully, a trial amongst your peers would shed some better light upon that. But the law specifically states in Vermont and Washington, D.C., you have no right to defend yourself.
That's right.
You have to retreat.
Crazy.
And so with that, I'm going to put out a challenge to you folks. The challenge is I want you guys to come up with your own family protocols, your own TAP, your own protocols, run the drills with your kids and your household members on a monthly basis till it's up there. And it takes at least 6 times to form a habit.
I like it.
So do it. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and shut off this live stream. I hope everybody had some good information. And then we'll see you guys next Tuesday here on my show and next Wednesday on Brad's show.
Nice. Thank you so much for having me here, Patrick.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.